Okay. Go for it.
Oh, hey, this is Pornsak, and you're watching Splash Pages.
What's wrong with him?
His girl just broke it off.
It's her father. He doesn't want her dating a zombie.
Why? What are they, demons?
She is predeceased.
An outsider?
Man, you're asking for trouble.
She broke my heart.
You're a zombie. Technically, you don't even have a heart.
After all of the great cinema that we brought to the world, and we still get no respect.
I don't know why he doesn't like me. I'm responsible. A full-time job.
You work at a haunted house in October.
I'm trying to be healthy. She's a vegan, so...
Wait, you're giving up meat?
Oh, come on.
What are you gonna do? Attack a farmer's market to try to impress her?
Now, if he was a vampire, he'd have a much better chance with her death.
Yeah, those pretty bastards.
I didn't think this would be that hard.
Hard. Man, I'm a zombie and I'm black.
Oh, here we go.
I blame the educational system.
I blame the media.
I blame George Romero.
Oh. How could you be so disrespectful?
Coffee?
Zombies don't know much, but they do know good coffee, Deadly Grounds. It's coffee to die for, and zombie approved.
Who's George Romero?
Just have some coffee.
Leo, are you there?
Leo, are you there? I think somebody's muted. I don't know. Well, it looks like we're having some technical difficulties here. Leo, I'm sorry. I think you're having some problems. I'll just take over for you, okay? All right. Hey, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to Splash Pages. We have an excellent show coming on tonight. We have an amazing guest and super excited. We had Leo apparently off to save Gotham, so we can't really do much right now without him. But I've got you handled. And along with me are these other great folks. Let's see how it's going with Jar Jar.
It's me. It's Tuesday. It's Splash Pages. I'm excited for tonight. I got to read a lot of good books this week, and we also have a special guest host this week who's right after me. Everybody say hello to Jeff.
Hi, everybody. Glad to be on Splash Pages. Looking forward to it. I've heard good things, so I have a lot to live up to, I feel.
All right. It's wonderful to have you here with us.
Thank you.
Okay.
Glad to be here.
And next we have Mr. Drew Mallow.
Who? Oh, right. That's me. Shocking.
Drew Mallow.
Yeah.
Drew.
Thank you. Okay. No, guys. Thank you. It's good.
Yes.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. We're having a super Tuesday. See what I did there. Yes, as everybody said, it's already been a long week and it's only Tuesday, so that's why we're glad you stopped by. We have an absolutely fantastic guest. I'm fairly certain you've seen something he's worked on. He's been a screenwriter for both Marvel and DC related projects. He's been an editor with Vertigo. Great stories there. If you've seen his work, you've seen his stuff with Infidel, The Good Asian, his work on the Horizon Experiment, which was his own little personal project with the Manchurian. He's done stuff with the Silver Coin, and he's described for the upcoming absolute Green Arrow. But why am I just talking about it when we can hear it from him himself? So everybody, the one, the only, the extremely nice but extremely well researched Pornsak Pichetshote, sir.
Hey, everybody. It's nice to meet you all.
Yeah, man.
What's
going on?
So
Yeah,
that's
nice.
wonderful.
Nice to be here. I appreciate the very well researched bit.
Well, I mean, buddy, wow. As a history buff, I just had to say, like, reading The Good Asian, like as someone who has a degree in ancient history, just history in general, I was like, good Lord, the research done.
Yeah.
I was like, this is because again, having spent a period of college life in a library researching things that no one's going to care about beyond giving me an A, I was just like, this man got it. I mean, I'm sure he's like, I know the smell of books. Deep,
That is very true.
deep.
Here's
That
the
is very
assignment.
true.
Yeah, man. Like,
I actually am on my desk right now. I usually have like kind of like it's not really, I guess it's a shelf, but like a shelf worth of books like on my desk as like reference for everything I'm working on. And I had to like queue up on them because there's just too many books for me to sort of like go through. So it feels a little bit like a hoarder's like entrapment on at my work desk right now.
oh, you listen, the person above me, you know, she has literally such a library, it breaks bookshelves.
We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah. So literally she has so many books, the shelves are breaking because they can't handle the weight.
I'm like,
That's amazing.
please, Carrie.
Please, Carrie, stop going to IKEA. Go somewhere else.
I ordered a heavy duty wooden one. It's going to be great, but I can't
Nice.
carry it.
So I always like to start because again, I understand we only have you for a certain amount of time, so we're gonna get right into. We're gonna go everybody lightning round. We're gonna go right into this. Jeff, I know you got this. Okay, it's a lot of energy at once. You know, you'll catch up. So you're from what I did. So because we were doing research, we do research here. So you started off as a Spider-Man fan, if I'm correct. I mean, you've been a reader first, but you are not just a Spider-Man fan. You are a classic Spider-Man fan. We're talking the Lee Ditko era, right?
Yes. So in the 80s, I think when everyone was getting on board with the black suit, that's where I discovered Marvel Tales. And they were reprinting all the Stan Lee C. Ditko stuff. And that's the stuff I fell in love with. And I was just like, I don't know. And all of like the stuff that was cool in the 80s was just like, I feel like they were a little too edgy for me when I was a kid. So like I wasn't a Frank Miller fan, I wasn't a Punisher fan, I wasn't a Wolverine fan, but like Steve Ditko, Stan Lee, Spider-Man, like that's where it was at for me.
So okay, I was about to say, so basically no 1,000 pouches, flowing chains. You're like, I want that spider to be small.
Yes.
Okay, that's fair. As an arachnophobe, I totally respect that. But so I mean, that was crazy. And then your kind of like your writing career started off with you just wrote, and eventually people were like, hey, this is good. You're like, oh, okay, I guess just write some more. And then somehow, before you know it, more people noticed, and you're just like, I could do this. I could, you know.
I don't know if it was quite that sort of straightforward, but I was an editor and executive for DC for a really long time, and started off as an editor for Vertigo, and then it became DC's TV executive, where I started their television department over there, and I'd always wanted to write, and so I decided to sort of quit my job as an executive and jump into the freelance writing world, and a lot of nothing proceeded to happen for like 2 years. And then what ended up happening was I had an idea for a comic that I really wanted to do. I started putting that comic together. That would become Infidel. Around that same time, I was I had gotten into the Disney Fellowship. That sort of, it's an incubator that kind of launches television careers, and that would get me to my first television show, Marvel's Cloak and Dagger. And then I was kind of like, at that point, by the time Cloak and Dagger started, I think I was like I'd finished writing I was on the last issue of Infidel, and so I was like balancing that and doing press for that while I was on the show, and that's when things sort of started rolling. And Infidel was this thing where it was a weird thing where I just like, I really wanted to make this book, so I poured on all my shekels to this book, and I thought it was going to be a one and done, and that would be my comics like writing career. And then slowly people were just like, well, it's going to make, even if it doesn't make all your money back, it's going to make some money. You could roll it off into another book. And I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't really think, I just instantly assumed it would lose like all my money, and that would be it. And then when it slowly became when it was slowly like, no, it will make some money. And then like, oh no, it's turning a profit. And then that would lead to, maybe I can do this for a while. I can keep making comics.
and it's kind of backing it up because I think Carrie and Jar, and I'm sure Jeff could agree, like this is a horror comic, and a lot
Oh
of
my God.
your horror you got from working on with Vertigo, working with the great Karen Berger, among other things. And I think it was a project that you worked on. I think it's Nevermore, right?
Nemavor.
Nevermore, yeah. Nevermore. That's kind of when you kind of saw the horror through Karen's eyes, and then just kind of hooked you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Nemavor, that was a book with Hans Rodionov, Ray Fox, both great guys, both great writers. Mike Huddleston, who's amazing, who's an amazing artist. Jeremy Cox, I think, colored it. That was one of, I mean, Vertigo is obviously sort of known for these horror books, but Nemavor was the first like kind of old classic horror they had done in a really long time. And a lot of the stuff they kind of like moved more into sort of dark fantasy with horror elements, but Nemavor was actually like a monster kind of movie, a monster book. And that was kind of when I got the chance to hear Karen's perspective on horror, because Karen would always used to say, like, she'd always laugh and be like, yeah, I've never been much of a horror fan, even though she's worked on all these iconic horror books. And as I got to know her and I got to know how she worked, one of the things I realized was, if you're working on any genre, if you have some kind of like backstop of like other knowledge, it usually helps it helps ground the genre that you're working on. So if you're working on science fiction, something about science, crime, something about police procedure, or like actual like crimes that are happening, fantasy, if you know something about folklore. But the thing working with Karen, I kind of realized, like, oh, the foundation of knowledge that kind of horror is built on is kind of like psychology and just like fucked up psychology and what's taboo. And so, and when I saw that perspective, I was just kind of like, oh yeah, I really, I find that very compelling as well. And that kind of made me realize, like, oh, this is what you can do with horror and all that. I hadn't, I enjoyed Alan Moore, I enjoyed Swamp Thing. I don't know if I was real horror head until that. And her perspective on it made me like, oh, these are stories about people. And, and the horror is kind of just like reflections of their psychology and externalizations of it. And that's when I really understood what horror could be.
And then you got to work with the amazing Aaron Campbell, who we spoke with him about Infidel a little bit earlier.
Oh, cool.
And it's just like, if you want somebody for, I need to have some random sigil bullshit. Oh, don't even worry. I don't have to look anywhere. I have it in my brain as well as on my bookshelves. Aaron just is the perfect person to go into any sort of an occult type of dealing, because the man is just a walking encyclopedia of it already.
Yeah. No, it's definitely to a disturbing degree. Like, it's definitely like no regular person to have that much occult knowledge at their fingertips or in their basement that Aaron just seems to have. But it was a funny thing, though. I don't. If you spoke to Aaron, you might have already talked about this, but Aaron was coming off of Dynamite, where he was kind of like the crime guy. He was a crime noir guy, and so all credit goes to Jose Villarrubia, who was our editor on the book and the colorist, where he was just kind of like, the way he handles shadows, I bet he would be good at horror. And this is why, like, Jose was such a great editor, because he was a teacher, that he can look at someone's art and sort of see the potential that they can grow and all that. And so I was kind of like, really, you think you can do horror? He's never done it before. And Jose gave me a lecture. It's like, artists hate being pigeonholed, Pornsak. You gotta give it. You can let him do this. I was like, okay. All right, we'll let him do it. And then I talked to him, and he was kind of like, I've been wanting to do horror my entire career. I got the job at Dynamite because I did painting. I did sword and sorcery paintings. And then the first book they gave me was a crime noir book. And I've been the crime noir guy ever since. I don't know how I got there. I gave them dragons. And so then we started talking, and we had all these common touch points in terms of horror. I'm like, oh my God, yeah, he's totally the guy. And then, like, I think it was like later on, he mentioned like, oh, and I happen to know all this stuff about the occult as well. And I'm like, oh, this is great. Probably a good thing you didn't mention this up front, because, like, it's definitely something better to know when you're friends with somebody than when you're just getting to know them.
By the way.
Yeah. Well, Jar, I'm going to let you have a question just a second. I need to bring up one moment in the script that absolutely I have to bring up. Carrie, you know exactly what it is. If you could bring it up, I would really appreciate it.
Yes, darling.
Okay, sir, thank you. Because I'm a huge Ghostbusters fan. So it was that, and I think their lady, like, I think it's like that character, and I think it's Medina, and the hospital was like, so Ghostbusters is a documentary. I'm like, yep. I'm sorry. Like, don't get me wrong. As a mediocre mid-level Star Wars fan, seeing a Scholarlic cake blew my mind. I was like, yes. But that, I was like, I fucking love this book. And like,
he hooked me right in at the beginning with the Boba Fett references and like what he's got for weapons and stuff. I was like, what's going on here?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I needed to bring that up as just like, thank you. Just fantastic. I was like, he's a nerd. He is one of us. He enjoys the pop culture things in life. I was like, you're in. Like, go.
So one thing I hope this doesn't burst your bubble sort of too much, because while I am a nerd, my nerd is sort of like deep comics.
That's fine.
And I don't like it when comics references other comics because it just feels a little too like breaking the fourth wall kind of thing. And I always have these problems when I want characters to be nerdy. I'm like, oh, but I can't use comics. But I don't know anything else but comics. And so I have to like call friends and be like, you're nerdy about Star Wars. Talk me through this. Like, I need this and this and that. And so that was, I mean, Ghostbusters did it actually for me. I'm enough of a horror nerd where I can like pull that. But the Star Wars, you will be surprised when you talk about like commitment to research. It extends to Star Wars. Where I'm talking to my friends like, okay, talk me through this. Wait, how does that work? Okay, got it. All right, I think I get it. Okay, check me on that.
That's crazy.
It's okay. You can ask Jar and Carrie. I'm generally that person who, if they've heard like, hey, did this happen? Am I bugging? What was the name of that movie that guy did that thing that was in that situation last year? I'm like, everything everywhere at once. Right. Thank you. Yeah. I'm just literally I'm basically, if you want to talk deep comic lore, I'm essentially Splash Page's Mark Grunenwald. I'm just I know everything. Nice. So
what I've learned is that because I'm deep comics, I know how nerd sounds. So I can kind of like take other nerd information and overlay on top of it, and it sounds like nerd, even though I might not know about anything about that particular topic.
Well said. Jar, you said you had a question?
Well, yeah, I was wondering. I mean, this is a pretty dark story and stuff. Was there anything that you left out that you were like, all right, that's too much, I shouldn't go there?
Oh, that's a good question. Was there anything? I mean, it's always hard to say because like I feel like the process in itself, there are natural things that that get compressed that might, but I don't think I missed anything. You know, there were bits where I think for all the characters, I would have liked a little bit more room to explore them more. So, you know, like if the issues were double-sized, you would have gotten to know more about the lives of each of the characters and their sort of backstory that Zora had made and all that kind of stuff. But it never got to the point of like, oh, there are scenes that got cut. It was more just like a lot of the ways that I work is that I will have a scene, I will have a lot of beats in the scene, and then whatever isn't the strongest just kind of goes. So it just kind of leaves. And so as a result, it's not like cutting room floor kind of stuff. It's more like, oh, this was a cool thought about a thing that just didn't have room to, it wasn't really essential to the story.
Right.
Do you think you'll ever revisit the world?
I would love to. If not necessarily, maybe. Me and Aaron have talked about it. Me and Aaron have talked about sort of like what that would look like and all that kind of stuff. A lot of it comes down to scheduling more than I would love to work with Aaron again in general. And then the question is it something new, or is it something new, or is it continuation Infidel? And this always happens with my artists. They become very popular after I work with them, and so it's impossible.
Damn
like I
them.
think, yeah, like Aaron's got like another 4 books that he has to work on like after this and all that kind of stuff. So like getting on their dance card becomes much of a challenge after that first book.
Like,
Yeah,
I
you know
made you.
that Terry Dodson is going places. You know, I mean,
yeah.
ooh,
right.
man, who knew?
Trying to squeeze Terry Dodson into that schedule, man, that was tricky.
Right. All right,
And
Jeff. Jeff, you had a question?
Jeff had a question. Yeah.
Yeah, so one thing that you mentioned as well, having your background in television, right? Usually when comic book writers are scripting, they use camera terms like zoom in, zoom out, everything like that. How does your experience in television help you maybe create a more cinematic comic book?
Well, that's a really great question. You know, I'm definitely always thinking about stuff like pushing in, pulling back, sort of going to wide, and all that kind of stuff. I think if TV has taught me anything about writing comics, is that it's really important to me. I think the biggest thing is that it's really important to me that, and this sounds really simple, that there is an arc for the character within a single issue. And so that the character, whoever the protagonist is, ends that issue in a different place than when they started that issue. And I know that sounds really elementary, but there's a lot of comics that don't do that. And to me, that movement from one place to another, that's a story. And so this idea that in comics you might get 4 issues, you know, between that, then you're like, oh, but then that means you're asking an audience to wait 4 months before you finish a story. So I look at every issue as a chapter, but I like to see it as, but you're getting a full story with everything. And it's not like, oh, that character is in the same place in the next issue as he was when he started. And there's some great comics sort of written that way. But I'm very curious what has to happen before I transcend that kid going to the comic book store who only had like $5 or $10 to spend on comics, where it's just kind of like, but I want to get the most as I can from that comic. Oh, yeah. And so that really goes into the way, and that really came from television. Television, there before streaming, and then streaming kind of opened that Pandora's box. But before streaming, they kind of drilled it into everybody that there needs to be an arc for the character with every issue, with every episode, and I brought that into my own comics.
Yeah, because one thing I always think about when television, you talk about economy of time in television. Yeah. In comic books, you talk about economy of pages.
Yeah.
How do those two skills overlap from between the economy of time and between economy of pages?
It's interesting. You know, comics are denser than a television show. So 3 pages of a comic, you'll get a lot more than 3 minutes of a TV show, in my opinion. Or there's more opportunity to layer information to sort of get there. So that is and that's the way you can use the page in that sense to do that. I think the difference between time and space is that, you know, and I'm certainly not the first to sort of say this. In the for comics, the reader controls time. And so as a result, you can layer a page with as much as you want, well, within a reasonable, but you can layer a page so that the experience can be richer. They can slow down to read it. They can reread it if need be. For television or live action storytelling, you know, you don't control, you know, they don't get to control time. So as a result, you kind of have to ratchet what you're telling to a certain pace that they can, you know, you don't want them to stop things and rewind it. Like, that's bad in terms of like watching a television or watching a movie. So, and it's certainly something I have to remind myself when I'm writing for TV or screen, is that for comics, it's layering everything so you get a meaty narrative, and then you want to pull that back a little bit because at the rate of which because the audience doesn't have the ability to control the time that they're experiencing the information.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Very cool. I did have something, if I can piggyback off that real quick. It just happened when you mentioned it. But with economy of the page, I've also noticed I'm a lettering geek, so that's my thing. These guys are like, oh fuck again. But I've noticed that in at least all of your create your own stuff. The narration boxes are coded to follow the person that's thinking them, which is great because you have you use a lot of internal thoughts from your characters, but you also used all that empty space. Anywhere where there's some black, there's some stuff going on over there. Was it because of the television, or was there some specific creator influence, or what gave you the style choice in doing so?
I mean, I think it depends on the book. I think different books go through different stylistic choices, and as I say this, I hope I am not contradicting myself, but generally for a book like The Good Asian, we do that a lot, where we do a lot of floating copy and floating text. And for a book like The Good Asian, that's because it's a contemplative kind of thing. It's a detective, and so the logic, and whether this is true or not, I don't know. But the logic that I have with that book is that because it's a contemplative book, it's okay to remind the reader occasionally that they're looking at a page, and be able to sort of appreciate the page in that way. When I'm working in horror, I do the opposite. It's so hard to scare someone in comics. And so so much of the work is to make them forget that they're looking at a page. And you kind of want the panels to be windows as much as possible. And so then I'm looking for stylistic choices. And that's why we'll set up captions, but then we'll keep them consistent. We won't do too much with layout. Well, if we're playing with layout, it's for a very specific purpose, usually for a scare. And so that's one of the reasons why, if I do something like float some copy there, it'll probably be in more what I consider a contemplative work, as opposed to pure horror, where I'm just trying to keep you in that world and have you just forget anything else that's happening. Because the longer you are in that world, the better my chances of scaring you.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, so the next book that we definitely want to talk about, that I could say I think we unanimously all loved, was The Good Asian.
Oh yes.
Chinatown noir. Never heard of that. But like you said in a previous interview, I feel like you're one of the few creators that I've ever come across that when he's putting together a book, the editor is the first choice.
Yeah. Yes, I might be one of the few. But yeah, no, part of it is because I really do consider I'm an editor first. I consider my editor sort of my partner in all this. And the other thing too is that this has happened for almost every creator-owned book I've had, where I've had an idea of who the artist is. My editor's been like, I think we can do better. And then they find an artist that is in fact a better choice. And I think part of that is because my first instinct is I always go I just want to work with my friends. And then my editor is just kind of like, yeah, but there are people outside of your friends that might have a better skill set for this particular thing. And so it's the first person I always go to is my editor. They help me cast my team, put the team together. There's a couple mainstays at this point, like Jeff is my go-to letterer, Jeff Powell is my go-to letterer. But everything else, the colorist definitely depends on the artist depends on the book. But yeah, for the editor, I can kind of, mute. For my creator-owned books, it's usually Will Dennis. I stretched out a little bit working at Boom with Eric Harburn, and now I'm getting a chance to work with him again at Tiny Onion, and that's great. But yeah, no, I really I hold my partnerships with my editor pretty close.
Nice. All right. Well,
wonderful. How do you? Because The Good Asian, it's a mystery. It's fantastic. How do you balance the mystery with the social commentary? It's a very the history. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm not entirely sure that I know the answer. One of the things I will say is that I don't have huge murder boards or anything like that, but I do have a spreadsheet where I break down the beats of the story and all that kind of stuff, so I can see where things land. And then I want to say that once I can see the story visually like that, I can almost be kind of oh, there's space here for more history. There's space here, for more of the drama and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's a little bit of, once I see what the story needs, once I know what the mystery is, then it's how much space does that take up? Right. And then it's just kind of and there's certain history I need to set up in order for that mystery to even work. And then from there, it's just kind of, okay, well, how much space do I have for the rest of it? When's a good time sort of for a break? And if I'm doing a break, what goes into that space? Is it character stuff? Is it history stuff? Is it all that? But a lot of that I think starts with, what's this mystery? It's generally overcomplicated. How do I strip it down to what I really need it to be? What space is left? What needs to go where? What space is left? What history do I have to set up in order to do that? What are the places to do that? And then kind of just going from there. So it's very much sort of like this aerial macro, 800-foot view of everything. And then that's where I start to go in. And then hopefully by the time I'm actually scripting, all I'm really caring about is emotion and character.
Fair enough. Jeff, you got a question?
Yeah, so one interesting about creating a mystery is leaving breadcrumbs and determining how fast you want to leave those breadcrumbs, because you don't want the audience to get too far ahead of you in the mystery.
Yeah.
You don't want them to solve it before you need them to. So how are you pacing your clues and your mystery in order to keep your reader just a couple of steps behind where you want them to be?
I mean, that's also a very good question. I don't know if I have a great answer for it. I feel like I'm making it up every time. I will say that, it goes back to that spreadsheet that's at my 300-foot view, 800-foot view of the story, where I don't know if I was necessarily looking at breadcrumbs as much as I was thinking. I was trying to keep track within that spreadsheet, every ball I throw up in the air, and then when I catch it later on in the story. So hopefully I never throw a ball up that I don't catch. And then once I know what the distance is between where the ball is thrown and where the ball is caught, then I can lead some stuff up to, tee it in either towards that direction or away from that direction if need be. And that's kind of how, and then in there too is, to catch that ball, do I need to set anything up to make that kind of comprehensible and understandable? And so all that kind of goes into the interim of, okay, I have 3 issues to sort of set up that ball catching. Like, let me, what needs to be there and what can just be fun to throw in there. But the trick is, because it's a serialized medium, you need to give just enough so it's tantalizing and gives possibilities to play without spilling the game. And that's why, like, if you're gonna put in a clue where you're confident the reader can figure it out from the clue, you've got to do it within the issue itself and all that sort of stuff. My favorite, the thing that I am chasing as a comic book mystery writer, the thing that I am chasing is what Alan Moore did in Watchmen, where I still remember I figured out that Ozymandias was the killer, and I turned the page and they figured out Ozymandias was the killer. And I was just kind of like, oh my God, that is so cool. That is so cool. He planned it so perfectly like that.
That is pretty interesting. I love your analogy too of the throwing the ball up in the air and like making sure you catch it when it comes back down, because you're right, leaving a plot hole out or something like that can be not only like distracting but confusing.
One of the things I also learned from Watchmen when it came to mysteries, which is something that makes your job easier that you don't have to think too hard about, is because Watchmen has so many simultaneous mysteries, that just telling those mysteries simultaneously, readers will try to connect one, like it will deepen the mystery because readers don't know which mysteries are separate from one another. And so sometimes when I'm just like, oh, well, like there are a bunch of unanswered questions, but it deepens the mystery because just because in your head, this mystery doesn't have anything to do with that mystery, I don't, just because when you're reading it, you don't realize what's going on with Hooded Justice has nothing to do with what Ozymandias is doing. And it just deepens sort of like the mystery as you're reading. So that's definitely another thing I got from Watchmen.
Carrie, you had something?
Yeah. Okay. So reading the gradation, I'm going to preface this by saying I am a white girl who grew up in a farm town, and I live in Nebraska. So I am very sheltered from the world of discrimination and things. Like I've studied history. It wasn't in our textbooks, but since I've gotten out of high school and stuff, I've actually studied and went, oh, all of that happened. And I kind of get it. And I'm so glad that you spent so much time showing all these different history lessons in the book about the Chinese Exclusion Act and everything else that went on, and bring in your letters and stuff. People really seem to praise your representation, what it was like. But is there something still for those of us who are as sheltered as I am? It feels like everybody's somewhat pleasant now, except for some certain states might not be the best. But you used an example in one of your letters, the need for the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act.
Yeah.
But what kind of things are going on that I don't understand or I might not know about, or some of our other viewers who are maybe as sheltered as I am, as far as not
God.
being a white American?
That's so. First of all, thank you for that question. It's a very tough question to answer because of all the horrible that is happening, like all the time. So I don't know how much of it is sort of like Asian specific or Chinese American specific and all that, as much as it's hard to say. All I can say is, I guess, on the topics themselves, in the book themselves, the reading references list in the book will definitely give you way more information than sort of like what I give in the book, and it is a better representation, sort of all of that. In terms of outside, I mean, I don't know. It just feels like once you start, it's hard to like stop. Of like what there's just a lot to be concerned about. Like pick an hour of the day, pick a news thing that sort of comes out. It feels weird to highlight one over any other right now.
Yeah.
So it is still a lot more difficult than those of us who don't experience it have to understand.
It definitely is. It definitely is. But also too, like, there's one of the things that the Good Asian talks about in a roundabout way, and I think it's mentioned at some point, is the American immigration system was built around Chinese Americans. It was built to sort of keep Chinese people from coming into the country. So everything dealing with immigration started there, and then from there they would have this sort of immigration sort of policy. We're in this time right now where it is a tough time to be an immigrant, sort of in this country. And so whether you're Chinese American or Asian American or any of that sort of stuff, like being an immigrant right now is so tough. It's almost overwhelming, all the stuff that's sort of happening. And so I don't want to just like specify just like, well, Asian Americans or Chinese immigrants are going through this, when it's just like, being an immigrant, right? Like, we're in this weird time right now where less people are coming into the country. People who are coming into the country are scared about coming into the country. And that, that's the first time I can say that, certainly in my life. So I don't want to specify anything on Asian Americans particularly, but just like immigrants in America right now, there's a lot. It's a lot that's happening.
Thank you. Yeah. Jeff had something.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like there's so much to care about, and you care about so many issues that are important historically, currently. How do you determine what you're going to talk about? In other words, because I do know you do want to talk about some of these issues, and you do have to prioritize some of them over others. So how are you making those considerations?
I mean, a lot of it comes down to the project, right? It's, what do I want to talk about, but what do I have a hook that, I think the big thing is I don't assume that anyone wants to hear anything I have to say. So then it becomes just like, do I have an interesting enough hook where I can talk about this, and I will have fun talking about this in a way where people might want to hear what I have to say. So, and that's why The Good Asian is a noir, and it's set at a time where it is. It's like, oh no, there's an interesting story there, and all the stuff I want to talk about, I can kind of get into. Working on something like Absolute Green Arrow, it's a lot of class conflict, and that's something in this time that we're living in right now, I have a lot of opinions about. I have a lot to say. And then once you figure out what the book is and what that book is about, those themes make it very clear. Oh, this makes sense. This doesn't make sense. This is you trying to shoehorn something in, and just trying to be as faithful to sort of like what that story and what those characters want more than anything else.
Mm-hmm. So,
to Silver Coin.
Yeah. So, well, I have one question before we get to the Silver Coin.
Sure.
You mentioned in one of your interviews about essentially a lot of the inspirations that kind of contributed to The Good Asian, and one of them being, of course, the original Charlie Chan, which is again a character I had absolutely no idea about reading. I was like, oh my gosh, like how did we forget? It's almost like a lot of these characters and stories, it's like Marvel's Sentry. It's like, we forgot, and then suddenly see it was like, oh right, that, oh cool. So let's say like if if there was this like kind of a resurgence and someone's like, hey, do you want to write a Charlie Chan story? Would you be on that? Like, oh yeah. Or would you be like, no, I can't?
I don't. I mean, that's a really, really good question. I don't. I'd have to think long and hard if I have anything new to say about it that I haven't, you know, that I haven't already worked into Good Asian. I don't know. I feel like I might have gotten that out of my system. Like there is a world where the Good Asian was a Charlie Chan, like was a reboot of a Charlie Chan thing. I don't. Yeah. So I don't know if I'd have a take that I haven't sort of already done. Yeah, it's a really good question though. I probably won't know until anyone actually asks me.
No, hey, listen, whatever works. It's just because, like I said, like I was reading it and it was so funny because, like, I'm a Frank Miller fan. So when your character has, let's just say, a change of face, I don't want to spoil anything for anybody reading it. It kind of reminded me of like in Sin City, when Dwight had a similar kind of character, and I was like, wow, that is just. I was like, man, way before John Woo was cutting faces off with dubs in the air, man. Like, I was like, wow, that was just trippy. And again, just to, again, compliment once again, like I myself have only read some noir as a genre, and I was like, man, I'm loving this, because sometimes you just get so tired of stories being so like, oh, the killer is behind the door. It was his sister. Oh my God, there were two of them. I'm like, oh, come on. And then you're like, wow.
That's where I really have to give my editor a credit, Will Dennis. He's a huge crime noir sort of fan. So and I am not as much into it as him. So for me, I'm kind of like so I know if he's digging it, like it works in a classical way. And then for me, I'm a little bit more like you, where I'm a little, I got into noir later in life. So while there's stuff I enjoy, I kind of need to see something a little new and sort of like different. And so being able to work with Will, and when Will's digging, I'm like, okay, I think we found that balance of like, it's exciting for me as someone new, but for someone who loves the stuff, it's exciting for him.
Right. Carrie?
Oh, nope. I was just getting ready to queue up Silver Coin.
Oh, yeah, Silver Coin. So I just need to say, for the record, Carrie is the one who got all of us hooked on the Silver Coin. Right. And we have had the great Michael Walsh on. So we've already read your praises of him. We completely agree. The man, not like if he wasn't already in therapy, I was like, therapy for the genius. But I mean, I've read all of the Silver Coin before, and it's amazing. The collaboration, everything. I forgot how trippy yours. I think it kind of unintentionally triggered some of my COVID PTSD. Oh, just reading it, and because I was just like, oh my God, yeah, I remember. There was so much television I caught up on, and now I'm like, you could have been going to class, learning how to use a MacBook, all these things, but still, all of Silicon Valley was a bit more important. Barry, season 1 and 2, everybody. But I mean, and again, you got, not only is that collaboration with Michael, which again, astounding, but you got to continue that with Exquisite Corpses. So that's just the horror gift that keeps on giving, which I can say, Jar, I'm not sure if you're reading it, but I know me and Carrie are just chomping at the bit for that. And then you're even doing more with that. So how did, like, working on that and then kind of channeling like COVID memories into a really intense story, man.
Thanks. You've met Michael. Like, he's just so lovely. Like, I don't know anyone who's met him who doesn't love him. He's just wonderful in every way. And what was funny was I was a big fan of the Silver Coin. And as I'm usually worried about my schedule. I always feel like I'm overbooked. I usually am overbooked. And I had this moment where it's like, I want to post how much I love the Silver Coin. And then I was like, but if you do, Michael might ask you to write one and you don't have time. So like, don't post it. So, and I did it. And then like a week later, he asked me to write one. I'm like, but I can't say no. So like, so that's how I got involved with like Silver Coin. But because I didn't have time and I just come off the Good Asian where I did so much research, I was like, I want to do something with no research, but the Silver Coin takes place at different times across the thing. So I'm like, okay, let's just take a time I feel like I know way too well at this point, which is COVID era, like all my traumatized COVID memories. I have way too much of them. Let's use that as a thing, since the silver coin is all through time, because I don't want to have to. I don't want to do a touch of research on this thing, and so that's how a lot of that came about. And then it really was just sort of cherry picking, just like like the characters are all named by different friends, and there's like different friends' stories that like make up like each of the characters. Like there is no research that went into that story. It was all mining from real life and people I know. And that was because I had just come off of The Good Asian. I had done so much research for that.
That was actually my question, if like you had used real life experiences, because good Lord, it brought back so many painful memories.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Oh, and then mix it with horror. Like I'm just like, well, what a time. Horror came out of COVID. So yeah.
And couldn't be any more terrified of something that looked like a spider and then with more than 8 eyes. I was like, okay, cool. So now the fear has not just compounded, is now expanded. The fear is now, I'm like, okay, so there are scarier things. It talks. Okay. Woo, someone wake me up. Wake me right up. This is God, no.
One of the fun things about working with Michael, I feel like we had 2 Zoom calls or something like that. And so I don't know if I had this experience with any other, because he's like a creator, he's the creator of the book and all that. So you're talking to directly. So I could pitch horror beats and you can watch him light up. And so I remember how much he light up. It's like, oh, spider made of eyeballs. I love that. And all that. Like he really got into that. So
Jesus.
You and Michael's Cotton Dudley was terrifying, by the way. Loved his inclusion. I have like a chart that's all spread out of like, okay, these are the different things of coin. This is where it goes bounce.
Oh yeah.
Do you have a Bible for? Yeah, I sent him documents. We invited Michael Walsh.
He made an unofficial silver coin historian. Like you know how you have like an Excel murder spreadsheet?
Yeah,
She's got her custom silver coin Bible. That's just amazing. Like, oh, this and this and this and this, and I'm just like, sure, Carrie.
Yeah, he's just like, what does this? How do you even read this? Because I shorthand myself, and so I had to make another one then.
Yeah,
but
it was like, what does this look like? The scribblings of a crazy person? And she was like, you want to try that again? What a good job, honey. What a good job.
So did you guys have I mean, you get to write your own story, but the passing of the coin has its own timelines and various owners. Were you assigned that? Like, it's like, okay, you have to figure out how to get the coin from this person to this person.
No, that's what's great. I mean, the silver coin is such a great gig because because there's like so much time, you might have to figure out, like, you might need to know what happens around your issue, right? And so you got to figure out the logistics of, is it impossible for the coin to get here if it's also here and all that sort of stuff? So it's a little bit of like a do no harm kind of thing. And if you wanted to lean into like pushing things along and all that, like, I feel like I can't remember if I did stuff with if I added lore to the Pilgrim or not, ultimately Michael will make the decision if I added lore. If I might think I've added lore, and Michael will be like, nah, that was just a dream. But I think it's mostly a do no harm kind of thing. I definitely, going into the silver coin though, we'll see in the scheme of things how much this turns out to be true. But I wanted to add more toys. I got to play with so many toys. I wanted to add some toys as well. And so that was definitely the goal. Whether or not they make it into the toy box, we will see.
So Michael has confirmed that he has like 16 books already written by various people for the next release of the silver coin. Well, your surprise makes me wonder if you're aware of that. I was going to ask, do you know if you're a part of it or not?
I have not heard about it. I'm hearing it about it live. I also wonder it's because now that we are working together on Exquisite Corpses, he's just trying to keep me there now.
Yeah.
Got you where I want you.
Yeah.
And not only that, like, I mean, you did 2 issues of Exquisite Corpses that were phenomenal. especially we got to talk to another one of your exquisite collaborators, Adam Gorham.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
believe you worked on
Yep.
I
Issue
think
8,
it
we
was
worked
issue
on it.
8. Yeah, something like that. You're also doing one of the one shots.
Yes.
So
It's a spin-off mini.
yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. I'm trying to
But
think what I'm allowed to say about that. But yes.
yeah,
That has
it's
been
totally
confirmed.
cool. But I mean,
Everything.
again, Exquisite Corpses is just what the I want to say like the gift that keeps on giving.
Really
I
is.
mean, it in a true horror game, it is literally the thing that refuses to die.
Yeah.
You know, so just again, kudos to you guys. I mean, everything with that has been awesome, and just to see more of your stories, yeah. So
Yeah. Honestly, you're gonna. I actually just had the pleasure of. Is the issue 11? Is that the latest issue that's out?
Yeah.
Issue 11 is in stores. I just got a chance to read the PDF of issue 12 this morning, and James is writing that, and Michael's doing all the art. It's so good. It's so good.
Oh man,
So
Carrie's face
yeah.
said it all. She was like, "What?" It's
So
there.
you guys are in for a treat for these next 2 issues.
Let's go.
Yeah.
All right.
Any
go.
more questions on Silver Coin? Anybody? Because
No,
I
I'm pretty
would really
pumped.
like to jump in and discuss the Manchurian and the Horizon experiment as a whole.
Yeah.
So, if we ready? We ready
Well,
this?
let's frickin'
Let's do
go.
it, Carrie.
All right. So the Manchurian, this all came out from you working with Will Dennis and coming up and putting together a bunch of different books with very different types of protagonists and stuff. So you had some great people working, and the variant covers that you had Tula Lotte putting together, oh my God, those were beautiful. So
Beautiful.
do you want to give us a little bit of a like how you came up with this and how it was received by everyone? Because we've read the book, but we need to know how you did.
Yeah.
So it's been a while since I've pitched the Horizon experiment. But the Horizon experiment, it started with I gave it the challenge to sort of 4 different creative teams. But the idea is create a protagonist of color, but set your story up in a popular genre, but set your story up in a way that if you change the background of the protagonist, the story wouldn't work at all. And so from that, we've got 5 different stories. We have the Manchurian, which is about a Chinese super spy secretly working in America against the American government. You have the Sacred Damned, which is about a Muslim exorcist, also with art by Michael Walsh. You have Moondogs, and the Sacred Dam is, Manchurian is art by the living legend of comics, which is Terry Dodson. Sacred Damned is art written by Sabra Prasada, art by Michael Walsh, the wonderful Michael Walsh. Moondogs, which is written by the horror novelist Hunter Reeve, who's the novel The Reformatory was on like everyone's best of the year list. She and Kelsey Ramsey did a book called Moondogs, which is about East African werewolves secretly living in Miami and kind of about being a minority within a minority. There's a wonderful TV writer by the name of James J. Holtham who worked on the Emmy-winning Handmaid's Tale, worked with Michael E. Harris and they kind of did an Evil Dead for Black nerds, and in a book called Motherfucking Monsters. And then the last book is Finders Keepers with comics own Vita Ayala and Skylar Patridge, and they were chronicling this reverse Indiana Jones, someone who steals artifacts from museums to bring them back to their native cultures. And so all of them came up with these really sort of unique stories, and they were all pilots for potential new series. I'm a person where I read a ton of first issues. I read in so many first issues. It's like I almost have this ongoing series I read that is just like first issues, because I read so many first issues. I love watching new writers, or not even no writers, but just writers take stabs at new things. So a lot of that was bringing that in and kind of bringing that pilot mentality of here's a story, tell your story, set up your world, and if the response is good enough, we hope to continue sort of all these stories. And honestly, we're still waiting to see what that response is. I mean, one of the things that happened is that we launched kind of what I now look at in hindsight as sort of the start of this sort of like fallow period for creator-owned comics, where it feels like we're starting to get out of that now. And part of me is just like, if I wish we had launched it like a year and a half later, because indie comics seem to be sort of like, making a comeback right now. But we were launching it during the time where things were going great with Absolute Batman and the Absolute Universe, and people were thinking like, oh, this is going to really help indie comics. And then it just took a lot longer to sort of get there. So as a result, we're having to rely on trade sales numbers as opposed to just comic sales numbers. And trade sales numbers, as we learned, are much slower to get than comic sales numbers. So that is still data that we're still acquiring.
Cool.
Fair enough.
We're like pausing for a second here. Okay.
Yeah.
I have all these. Yeah, I've read all of them, and they are just great. I just
you
wasn't
read them all,
sure.
Carrie?
I have, yeah. Well, I mean, they came out in 2024. We're kind of jumping back. So
yeah, man.
I was just listening to a few of them. I'm like, I got to go back and read that one.
Yeah, man. They were all really great, man.
The werewolf one
beautiful
sounds
books.
right up my alley.
Moondogs is wonderful, but I will say the I think it was described like the Muslim John Constantine.
Yeah, that's so good.
That one. I mean, especially because Michael just my God, he just draws demons so well. But in that haunting, like it's not overly, but it's just weird enough that's gonna stick in your mind. You're gonna think about that later at night. You're in bed and you're like, hey, do you remember that panel of Michael Walsh? I'm like, I'm not going to sleep.
I remember, I could be making this up, but I remember in that spread, he is the spread of the demons, and they're all just like silhouettes, and he sent it in, and it's like, oh, it looked amazing. And then he's just like, later, maybe a week later, he's like, oh, I have one tweak, and he just elongated the forms of all the demons. And I'm like, oh, that's so fucking terrifying.
Right?
Like, he's just so good.
Yeah. But I don't know, Jeff, Jeremy, did you guys have any other questions about that?
Not exactly that, but like, how do you choose your? Because it seems like you choose perfect artists and stuff for all your projects. Do you get to choose them, or is that more? Oh, okay.
I mean, definitely. I'm trying to think if this is right. I think for certain short stories, I don't get a say. I want to say, but like every like ongoing book, monthly book I've done, not an ongoing book, but every monthly book I've done, I'm very involved with sort of cast finding artists. I mean, it's definitely easier, an Image where like, I'm running that ship, so like I do the hiring and all that. But even something like Boom, Boom, they were really. Boom was a really great example of when Man's Best came to Eric Harburn. I didn't know how it would look. It was the first time I made a comic that didn't know how it would look, and that was primarily because in my head I wanted to look like sort of like classic animated kind of thing. And then Tony Fleeks, that bastard, did Stray Dogs, and then it just felt like I was copying him. So when I went to Boom and Eric, I was just like, I have this thing, but I just don't know how it looks. It's the first time I have a book that I don't know how it looks. And he brought on Jesse Lonergan. And at that point, it's like, okay, now no one can draw this except Jesse Lonergan. Like, it's such a book for Jesse right now. It hits what he does so well. And I can't wait for another chance to work with Jesse. And then, working with DC, I used to work at DC, so they've been really good asking, and I usually start if pitching something like, these are the artists who I think would be perfect for it. And when working on Absolute Green Arrow, Raphael Albuquerque was like the first person and I just assumed we weren't gonna get him, so I literally put him on the list. He was like, who draws like Raphael Albuquerque? And they were like, no, Rafa wants to do this. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing, because he is the perfect person. No one, I think, does horror and movement and action as well as Rafa does. I feel like people can do one or the other, but no one can really do both as well as he can. And oh my God,
Agreed. Jeff, you had a question?
Yeah, there's a quote in your comic book, The Maturian, that I think is very prescient to what's going on right now, and I want you to kind of dive into it. You write, in the new Cold War, money is the most terrifying munition. Now, I feel like in a world where we're dealing with billionaires, where everything is corporate, can you kind of dive into the idea of money as weaponry?
Yeah, it's funny. I totally forgot I wrote that line. And it definitely feels more prescient now than it was when I wrote it. I think part of it, I think part of it for me, at the time, was me discovering this thing that I would later become obsessed about just, and it's nothing new, right? I think we're all here about sort of the outsized influence that, that billionaires have over our lives and over our society. And so, but I do think maybe that was the start of me really kind of getting on that, oh wow, it's not the left and the right, it's like people with money and people without money, and realizing just how powerful that was. But it's really interesting you bring it up, because I forgot I had written that, and you're right, it does have a wow, yeah, it definitely it packs a lot more punch now.
So we're gonna have we're going to some final questions here because we don't
Sure.
want to waste too much of your time. We know you have some busy stuff coming up. Drew, you had a question?
So for me, again, I'm extremely looking forward to seeing what you're doing with Absolute Green Arrow. I mean, not just Raphael, but the premise, the variant covers. I mean, it's all been top notch. So, I mean, and on top of it, for those, first thing first, I'm not going to say anything really too much because I want anybody to read more of the Absolute Universe because it's just been phenomenal, especially what happened to Oliver Queen needs to be addressed, but I'm not going to say it. But I mean, the premise of what you have, I mean, just how did that come up? Like in terms of, because again, I notice a lot of your projects, like you're very much the write what you know. So a lot of things are very much personal, very observational, but still tied into your personal feelings and such. So how did the idea of this particular Green Arrow, and not only that, but it's also kind of an investigative story as well, just come into play, where again you're juggling all these different stories in this growing landscape of this game-changing universe right now for DC and comics?
I mean, first of all, I can't give enough credit to Scott Snyder and all the folks at DC, Scott and Nick and Kelly and Hayden and Jason and Rafa, for starting all that stuff, and then going on to Jeff and Al and Dennis, with all sort of this book. I mean, it's a juggernaut, and so I am thrilled to get a chance to sort of play in that for a little bit. And I think for me, I think where it started from was, I think originally, these are one of the things that I don't know if it is actually true. I've just made up in my own head and I've started believing. But like, I think for a while I was thinking, originally when I was talking to them, I was just like, oh, what if we did like a villain book? Why don't we see what it's like to be like a villain in the Absolute Universe? But then as like time kind of went, I realized I don't think I want to write a book about, like, I don't want to write a book about people doing horrible things and getting away with it. Like, that feels like a little too much like real life. And like, I kind of want the opposite of that. And then that kind of became, I don't think I realized at the time, but so much of those feelings kind of became kind of Green Arrow. For anyone who doesn't know, Absolute Green Arrow is about a serial killer who slaughters corrupt billionaires. The only clue to his identity being the green arrows that are lodged in the bodies of his victims. And the person who's trying, so it's, I know what you did last summer for billionaires. And so the person trying to figure out who this mass killer is Dinah Lance, Absolute Black Canary, as she kind of goes on this investigation, which will take her to, anyone who's been good with a bow and arrow in the DC universe is game for being a suspect in the book. And so once I realized that, I wanted to, those are where my feelings were. I think the other aspect of it too was I got very hung up on, okay, if we're gonna do a Green Arrow story, like what I love what Scott did and what Jason did is that they found ways to make Batman, Superman, and say like, okay, well, what if we told these stories today? Like, what are these themes that are resonant with where we are today? And I felt like, okay, if we're gonna do that, how do you do that with Green Arrow? Like, how do you do that in a world where, if you can imagine a world where it seems like rich people get away with doing whatever they want and they can kind of get around laws and change laws to surround them. If you can stretch your imagination to believe that, what would it take to actually they don't care about getting arrested because they, like, what would it take to, if you're a normal person, to actually, be up against them? And so then it's like, okay, so this person needs to put the fear of God into them. And then it became a little bit of just like, why use a bow and arrow? Why not just use a gun? Why not use this? Why not use that? And then it got to me to the point of like, I mean, it just sounds like something a serial killer would do. And then I was like, oh, it does sound like something a serial killer would do. A serial killer would be very particular about killing with an arrow, and the fact that it needs to be green as well. And then once that started, all the pieces of like the Green Arrow mythos kind of like locked into place of where they all needed to be.
That's really interesting.
That sounds so awesome.
Yeah, right.
Like,
I'd love to play around in your mind for just a little bit.
that's my top shelf over there. That I have.
Yeah. But okay, that was me. And anybody else? Any other last questions?
We should wrap it up here.
Okay. All right. So, Carrie, do you want to?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So first off, let us know. Do you have any cons or anything coming up? And also, where would you like people to interact with you on social media? What do you use, and what do you actually use?
Yeah, I mostly use Instagram, I think, at this point, which I'm real_Psac there. I am on Blue Sky as Pornsak. I go back and forth on how much I'm using that. I'm trying to be better about using that, but I don't know. I'm trying to figure out like how much engagement does it gets and all that kind of stuff. But Instagram, I'm better about that. I'm just not good about posting images. But I'm better about being consistent with that. And in terms of cons, I will be at, I don't know if it's been announced yet, but I think I'll be at the Fan Expo Philly at the end of May. Oh, and I will be doing I'll be doing panels. I won't be signing or anything, but I'll be doing panels this weekend, this Saturday at WonderCon. There's I posted on my Instagram. It's a panel at noon about storytelling in different genres. It's a really cool thing that I'm happy to be a part of, where it's not just me talking with other comics people. I'm talking with a voice actor, someone who deals with video games. I'm trying to think there's a couple other media in there, and we're just talking about like, how storytelling is different between all the different disciplines. So I'm actually really looking forward to that panel, and that's at noon at WonderCon on this coming Saturday.
Nice.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'm going to start and head us out, and we will be done. Just give us another minute here. So, everybody, you can find me, Carrie Sanders, Facebook. I have all the other things, but I don't use them other than to look at other people's stuff. But you can find all of my stuff listed there, and just reach out, read my stuff, do my stuff, have some fun. If you see a judgmental crow, you'll know it's me, because I got to peck the squirrel to keep him in shape. Moving on, Shar. How do we get a hold of you?
Hey, Facebook's the only place I really use. I'm part of everything else, like Instagram, Blue Sky, and everything, but Facebook's really the only thing I use. Also, if you enjoy watching other people play video games, I don't know why you would be, but check me out on Twitch, because I play video games on there. That's it.
All right. Jeff.
All right. You can find me on the Traversing the Stars podcast on YouTube and other podcast platforms. I'm on Facebook. You can find me there. You can find me on Blue Sky. I'm beginning to pay attention to that one more. And I do exist on Instagram, though whoever on Facebook is also, I guess, on Instagram. So that's it.
All right. Mr. Drew.
Thank you, Jeff. That was wonderful. But hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Totally show up to our guest, give him more money so he can write more awesome books, and so he can keep modestly terrifying everyone with his research and time. For me, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Ghostbusterman 1984. I'm also on Blue Sky. And also please make sure to hit the like and subscribe button if this is your first time watching us. If you like what you see, we would really love if you join us on our journey, because there's still so much more. It's only March. There's so much more of the year. It's a lot of adventures, everybody. For instance, tune in next week when we have the great Joe St. Pierre's joining us again to talk about some sweet 90s goodness and what he's been up to recently. It's been a minute, so we're glad to have him back. And then we have a few other people coming on literally the day after and day before, but I'm not going to tell you about it right now, so that's why you should totally subscribe. And if you need to get in touch with me, Take a number. I'll get to you eventually.
Ding.
All right. With that, thank you, everybody. Be good. Have a wonderful night. Bye-bye.
Keep the comments coming in on YouTube. I love them.
Yes.
Be good, everyone, or Absolute Green Arrow will get you.
Bye.